I always thought the worst kind of betrayal would come from strangers. But I was wrong. The deepest wound came from inside my own home. When my husband insisted on a DNA test, I laughed at first. I told him he was being paranoid. I told him our son was his, through and through. But when the envelope finally came, my world shattered. The paper didn't lie. My husband wasn't the father of our son. His brother was. I remember the way my husband looked at me, like I had stabbed him in the back. I remember my own knees giving way, the room spinning, my chest tightening as though I couldn't breathe. I wanted to scream, to deny it, to tear the paper into 1,000 pieces. But the truth sat there in black and white, and nothing I said could change it. But here's the part that makes this story even harder to tell. I never knew what really happened. I never asked for this. I never even suspected. Before I tell you how my world collapsed, make sure you subscribe, because what comes next is almost unbelievable. But what really happened that night? Even I didn't know until much later. In the beginning, my marriage was everything I had prayed for. My husband was attentive, hardworking, and kind. He wasn't perfect, but he was mine, and I felt safe in the life we were building together. We had a little house that buzzed with laughter, shared meals at the dining table, and whispered promises late at night about growing old side by side. And then, there was his brother. He wasn't just family, he was like a permanent fixture in our home. He came around often, sometimes to help fix things, sometimes just to share a meal. He was charming, easy to talk to, and the kind of person everyone seemed to trust without a second thought. I never questioned his presence. To me, he was simply my brother-in-law, someone I respected, someone I saw as part of the fabric of our family. Looking back now, it's strange how comfortable I felt with him around, how easily I welcomed him into my daily life. Trust has a way of blinding you. It makes you ignore little things you should probably notice. Have you ever trusted someone too much? Comment yes if you have. At that time, I never could have imagined how misplaced my trust really was. If only I knew back then that the person sitting at my dinner table would one day destroy my entire life. It was a night like so many others. The family had gathered at our home, laughter filled the rooms, plates clinked against each other, music played softly in the background. My husband was busy grilling outside with his brother, and I remember pouring myself a glass of wine to relax after a long week. As the evening went on, I started to feel unusually lightheaded. It wasn't like me, I could handle a glass or two without any problem. But this time, the room began to blur, conversations sounded distant, and my body felt heavy, as if I was sinking into the couch. I told myself it was exhaustion. After all, I had been working long hours, managing the house, and maybe the wine just hit me harder than usual. The last thing I clearly remember is laughter echoing from the kitchen, my husband's brother handing me another plate of food, and then, nothing. My mind went blank. Hours passed in a haze I couldn't explain. By the time I woke up the next morning, I brushed it off as fatigue. Life moved forward as if nothing had happened. But deep down, something about that night lingered in my thoughts. I couldn't shake the unease, though I tried. Don't skip, you need to hear what came after that night. I thought nothing of it at the time, but that night changed everything. For years, life moved forward as though nothing unusual had ever happened. My husband adored our son, and I poured every ounce of love into my family. But slowly, things began to shift. It started with little comments, remarks my husband would make under his breath, things I didn't fully understand at the time. "He laughs just like my brother," he'd say, his eyes narrowing. Or, "Have you noticed how his walk is almost identical?" At first, I thought he was just being playful, teasing in the way families sometimes do. But his tone grew sharper, his glances colder. The comparisons became arguments. My husband accused me of hiding something, of keeping secrets I didn't even know existed. I defended myself with tears in my eyes, swearing on everything I held dear that I had never betrayed him. But the more I denied it, the more convinced he became. It broke me inside, to have the man I loved questioning my loyalty, twisting my every word into evidence against me. Nights turned into shouting matches. Days turned into silence. Our once happy home became a battlefield of suspicion. And then, one evening, after yet another heated argument, he slammed his hand on the table and said the words that still echo in my mind: "We're getting a DNA test. I need the truth once and for all." Would you have agreed to the test if you were me? Let me know in the comments. That's when he demanded a DNA test, and my nightmare truly began. The day the results came back, my heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I tried to convince myself it was just paranoia, that once the papers were opened, my husband would finally lay his doubts to rest. He tore open the envelope with trembling hands. His eyes scanned the words once, then again, and then he froze. I will never forget the look on his face, shock melting into rage, disbelief turning into something darker. He shoved the paper toward me. My hand shook as I read the lines that shattered my entire world. Probability of paternity, 0%. Biological father identified, his brother. The room spun around me. I could hear my own heartbeat, my breath shallow, my vision blurred by tears. I kept whispering, "No, this can't be true. This isn't possible." But the paper in my hand didn't care about my denial. It was cold, clinical, and final. My husband exploded. His voice thundered, accusing me of betrayal, of destroying his life, of humiliating him in the worst way possible. He paced the room like a caged animal, punching the wall, his face twisted in pain and fury. I fell to my knees, sobbing, begging him to believe me when I said I never asked for this, I never knew. But he couldn't hear me. The truth had blinded him. And then came the question neither of us wanted to face: what about his brother? Don't click away now, the confrontation is the hardest part to hear. But when we confronted his brother, what he said left us speechless. My husband didn't knock. He kicked the door open, fury shaking his whole body, the DNA paper clenched in his fist. His brother was sitting on the couch, calm, almost smug, as if he had been expecting us. The paper landed on the table with a slap. "Explain this," my husband bellowed, veins bulging at his neck. His brother glanced down, smirked, and leaned back. "So, you finally know." The room froze. My husband's fists clenched, his chest heaving. "You slept with my wife? My own brother?" I shouted through my tears, "No. I never slept with you. Tell him the truth, tell him what you did to me that night." For the first time, his face faltered. His smirk cracked into silence. He rubbed his jaw, avoiding my eyes. "You drank too much, things happened. It wasn't supposed to go this far." My knees buckled. My husband's rage erupted. He grabbed his brother by the collar, slamming him against the wall. "You drugged her, didn't you? You took advantage of her." Their mother burst into tears, clutching her chest. Their father yelled, demanding the truth. But instead of defending himself, the brother stood there in silence, guilt painted across his face. That silence said more than any confession ever could. I screamed, "You destroyed my marriage. You stole my choice. You made me carry a secret I didn't even know existed." My husband pulled away, trembling, his eyes burning into me with a mix of rage and despair. "How do I ever look at you again? How do I raise a child that carries his blood?" The room became chaos, shouting, crying, blame thrown in every direction. His parents argued, cousins whispered in the hallway, the weight of scandal pressing down on everyone. And in the middle of it all, I stood shaking but firm. Through my tears, I declared, "I won't carry this shame. This ends here. I'm going to the authorities. He doesn't just owe me the truth, he owes me justice." If you've been shocked by this story so far, share this video, someone else needs to hear it. And as the room went silent, I realized with a crushing weight that I wasn't just losing my husband. I was losing my entire family. After that night, I knew I had two choices: stay silent and live under the weight of shame, or rise up and fight for the truth. I chose to fight. The very next morning, I went to the authorities with the DNA report clutched in my hands. My voice trembled as I told them everything: the blackout at the family gathering, the suspicions, the confrontation, and his brother's guilty silence. For the first time, I wasn't just speaking as a wife or a mother. I was speaking as a woman who deserved justice. The process wasn't easy. Investigations dragged on. His brother denied, twisted, and tried to turn the blame on me. But science didn't lie. The DNA test proved what he wanted to bury. Witnesses recalled that night, the way I had suddenly seemed disoriented, the way he stayed close by my side. Piece by piece, the truth built its own case. And then came the day of reckoning. Standing in court, I looked him in the eye as the verdict was read: guilty. He was sentenced for what he had done, not just to me, but to the family he tore apart. My husband sat in the back of that courtroom, his face unreadable. We weren't magically fixed. Trust like ours doesn't heal overnight. But in that moment, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. I hadn't just been a victim. I had stood up, spoken out, and forced the truth into the light. Now, when I look at my son, I see innocence, not shame. He didn't ask for this, and he will never carry the burden of his uncle's sins. That's my promise. If this story shook you, don't keep it to yourself, share it. Someone out there might need the courage to stand up for their own truth. So, I'll leave you with this question: if you were in my shoes, would you forgive and try to rebuild your marriage, or would you walk away and start over?